Welcome to Built for This, the podcast where purpose meets performance. Hosted by business strategist and human behavior specialist Carly Pepin, this show dives into the real stories behind high-growth businesses. Let's bring life to your vision.
Awesome. So welcome, guys. I'm really excited for today. I have Jordan Levine here, who joined Stretch Zone as Chief Operating Officer and President in mid-2024, bringing more than 25 years of experience building, scaling, and leading some of the most successful franchise brands in the country. A seasoned franchise executive and entrepreneur, Jordan has a proven track record of driving growth while creating systems that empower franchisees and elevate customer experiences. He began his career with Cold Stone Creamery, helping grow the brand from fewer than 50 locations to over 1,200 nationwide. He later joined Massage Envy, where he honed his expertise in recurring revenue models and brand sales engines, insights that have informed his leadership philosophy across every franchise he's helped shape. Jordan went on to launch his own franchise consulting practice before joining WellBiz Brands, where he contributed to the growth of Amazing Lash Studio. Most recently, he served as Chief Operating Officer of Sola Salons, where he helped expand the brand to 720 locations, empowering more than 20,000 independent beauty professionals to build their own businesses, all without a single failed location. So, welcome, Jordan. It's so good to have you.
Thank you. I'm so exhausted listening to that.
I know. You've been busy.
Boy, it makes me sound really old.
Yeah. Yeah, you've definitely been
The
busy.
gray
Well,
hairs on the side of my head, boy.
oh my God. Well, mine are covered up for good reason, on purpose. I pay for that.
That's great. Well, I hope you go to Sola
Uh,
Salons. My past life thanks you.
yes, definitely. And this is actually fun. Jordan and I have grown up in the same neighborhood, so when we got to chatting earlier, we had some really fun conversations and about that as well. So we have a lot in common there. I didn't actually realize you did Cold Stone Creamery, which is so funny because that's kind of where we were growing up and hanging out.
So it really takes me back. Like first job, like literally first job that I ever had was scooping ice cream at the Calabasas Commons, our old stomping grounds. And I thought I was the coolest person in the entire world.
You
That I
were at that time. That
it
was the
was
coolest place to
It
be.
was the coolest place. Like nobody like today, everybody knows what Cold Stone is. Back then, nobody knew what it was. It was cool, it
Yeah.
was special, and it was like the hot spot. And all your friends wanted to go on a Friday night, and there was lines out the door, and it was like the cool energy. And like, so yes, I was the coolest person in the world. But that was actually my first job in high school. I think I was 16 years old, just learned how to drive and drove myself to work every however many days I worked. But that actually turned into a whole career. And so to get started at that moment, I ended up spending 10 years with the brand and did all things. And what you talked about the growth of the company from 50 to, I don't even remember, you said 1,200. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
It was a lot of stores by the time I left. And it was a national and frankly, international phenomenon. And I exited that business in 2008, again, dating me a lot. But I was with that brand for a long time of my life. And it was a very special time to watch a brand like talk about like an MBA program, like a real life MBA, to go from that like mom and pop company to a powerhouse was
Yeah.
just so fun to be a part of. And you knew you were building something exciting and special. Starting from scooping ice cream in my own store, like that was just, it was a wild ride and in all the best ways, the best time of my life.
That's amazing. I'm curious as well because, like, I knew you were at Cold Stone, but I didn't know that you stayed with them for so long and helped them with the franchising. So, what did that look like? Like, did you go to school and come back, or did you kind of stay at school, continue on? Were you just there the whole time?
It's actually like it's funny because I don't think about this very often because it's a long time ago. But like what a fun journey it was. So, I was a junior in high school scooping ice cream. And when you're at the early phases of the journey of the company, the CEO at the time, flash forward, however many years later, he ended up becoming the governor of the state of Arizona for 2 terms, but he was the CEO of the company. He was still the guy that visited stores. And so he and I ended up getting connected. We hit it off. Here I am, 16 years old, talking to the CEO of the company. I think I'm the coolest guy in the world. And one day he says to me, before I start college, he says to me, why are you not working for me? And I think like 4 minutes later, I pulled up my car to Scottsdale, Arizona, to the headquarters and said, "Where do I start? Put me to work." And that was the summer before I started. I went to University of Michigan, and I spent every year during my time at Michigan, I spent interning for Cold Stone. And every
Mhm.
summer I'd come back, and the company would double in size. And that led me to where I graduated and became an area developer, which is a fancy word of saying I built stores. My business partner was my first cousin. We moved to Boston and we opened up the first stores in the Northeast. And Cold Stone hadn't had stores in Boston or New England or the Northeast. And we introduced the West Coast concept of Cold Stone to a brand new area. And we ended up building 28 stores in the market before selling that business. Again, I said it earlier, that was like my unofficial MBA, but that was 10 years of my life. And I got a real crash course on everything, not just scooping ice cream, but like, what does it mean to be a franchisor? What does it mean to be a franchisee? And you're in a seasonal business where think about New England. It gets pretty darn cold in the winter. You got
Yeah.
snow. We opened our first store February 4th of 2004, I think it
Cold.
was. Yeah, I think that day we had one customer and I think it was a family member. And so like
Makes
that's
sense.
where we started. And
Mm,
understand and to learn the business world that especially in a seasonal business, you learn very quickly that you have to save your money um, all summer long when you have lines out the door. That money goes very quickly if you're not very diligent and careful. And then that carries you through the winter and you learn what does it mean to create a budget? And what does it mean to be sort of careful? What does it mean to manage your payroll and your labor? What does it mean to make sure you can make rent? And all those things. And we really built a brand there. And I'm very proud of building a brand in New England in particular. They're very tough people. And brands that work everywhere else in the country take a lot longer to work in New England.
mm.
Starbucks versus Dunkin'. It's Dunkin' territory. When we joke about how Starbucks is on every corner, it's not there. Starbucks or Dunkin's on every corner. And we got voted best ice cream our first year in operation there. And we were on every TV show and we were the hottest thing because it was unheard of. So it was a really, really fun journey. You're taking me really down memory lane. I appreciate it. I haven't done it in so long. But it's fun to think about all that. It was a fun time.
That's amazing. That's really cool. And I know so after that, it sounds like just you got hooked on franchising because then it was Massage and Envy and Amazing Lash Studio, Sola Salons. So what was your role at like each of these places? Was it the same as Cold Stone or did you sort of transition into other dynamics, other roles?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I've had the chance to do it all. And, in my Cold Stone world, I started again as an employee in high school, all the way to the corporate side as this quote unquote intern. We didn't even know what that meant back then because when there's, half a dozen employees in the entire company, what is an intern? Everybody does everything. Um, so I learned really quickly what does it mean to be a franchisor and what does business mean? Then I got a chance to be on the other side where I owned the business and I got a chance to have the benefits and the difficulty of being a business owner, which took me. We sold that business. Massage Envy was my next venture, and I got a chance to. What I realized, and I think getting to your question, what I realized is franchising is very special and
Mhm.
franchising enables I know it sounds a little cheesy, but I'm gonna do it anyway. It enables the American dream. And what
Yeah,
it
it
does,
does.
it's cheesy to say, but I believe it. And what it enables people to do is come from every walk of life that you can imagine, whether school teacher, firefighter, veteran, corporate, refugee, um, to take control of their life and to open a business when you don't know how to open a business by yourself. And that is a very special thing to say, we've got this business, whether it's Massage Envy or whether here it is Stretch Zone where I'm at today. We have a business. It works really well. It's something that is filling a void in the marketplace. And we can teach you, Carly, or whoever off the street, how to do this. And you're not by yourself. And you have somebody behind you that's cheering you on. And that is a very special business that I fell in love with that. I fell in love with it. And I think every time I think like maybe it's time to venture out and try something else, it's like it keeps drawing me back because
Mhm.
it's something that I love. It's it's weird to say 25 years. I think it's actually 26 now. that used to be 25 until we all got another year older. But it's what I really am very proud of, a legacy, that have been able to help a lot of people build their own generational wealth and something they can pass along to their next of kin. It's awesome. It's been a really fun journey.
Yeah, that's amazing. I completely agree with you. I love franchising for like that specific dynamic where you don't have to understand business to get a franchise. Like, if it's not set up for you, it's probably not a good franchise. 100%, I wouldn't even touch it. They might be more of a licensor if it's not 100% a business that's set up, standard operating procedures, how to hire, how to train, how to do everything is
Bingo.
so detailed that just anyone can really step in. And then it just becomes doing the work, learning how to delegate, like all these different dynamics, and it changes the game because a lot of people just not only do they not know how to do that, but also it's unrealistic for some people to have to learn that dynamic because they need the income more quickly. They might have family to support, other dynamics that they need to take care of. Where entrepreneurship, it takes time to build it into those businesses. It takes time to build those processes. I love franchising for that too. I think it's so cool.
We're on the same page.
Yeah.
And then, from the consumer side, on the customer side, what's awesome about it is people love to support local business and
Yeah.
locally owned and operated. And I don't know that everyone in the world realizes that that a franchise is a local business and it is a
Yeah.
local small business. And so, there are corporate non-franchise companies and but that's not what franchising is. When you go to your local stretch zone, you're supporting a family, putting food on their table, and you're supporting local employees that are also part of the fabric of a community. And so I think, you see a big sign that says stretch zone, you might think, oh, that's some corporate entity. It's not. That's not what franchising is. It's really enabling and empowering business ownership at the local level. And that becomes a big part of a community. And
Mhm.
so, I learned that at an early age going back to this Cold Stone. I remember, we had a husband and wife team that owned that store, and I got to know them as a family. And I didn't understand. I didn't know at 16 years old what that meant. But to see them really thrive and build a business was what caught me really early in my life. What really captured my attention was this local and this family dynamic. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I'm curious as well. So, when you think about coming on to Stretch Zone, right? For people who have never heard of Stretch Zone, if you could share a bit about what Stretch Zone actually is so they understand what we're talking about.
So I think the best way that I've figured out how to say this is I learned I asked this question in a group about I don't know 3 4 months ago, and it's like, wow, that's a really good way to explain it. So there was about 100 people in the room. I said, raise your hand if you think stretching is good for you, and everyone in the house raises their hand, and everybody knows that it's good for you. My follow up question was, keep your hand up if you consistently stretch, and you watched all the hands go down. There was like 2 hands up still. So everybody thinks stretching is good, but nobody's doing it. And so that really is the crux of who we are and why we exist. All we ask is that you come in to a stretch zone, lay on a table, and let us do the work. Like it's
Mhm.
not that hard to sell that concept. A lot easier to sell than somebody going into the gym and working really hard. It's assisted stretching. And assisted stretching means we do all the work and we stretch your body in ways that you can't really do by yourself. And it is for everyone. It is for the weekend warrior to the active, like me. I'm a marathon runner. To someone that loves to play pickleball, loves to golf, and wants to up their golf game, all the way to the senior citizens of the world that all they want to do is tie their shoes and pick up their
Mhm.
grandkids on the floor. It is the gamut. Human being is our demographic. Every body is the same. It transcends language. There's no language limitations. Body is the body, no matter where you go. And so, the exciting opportunity of what Stretch Zone is, um, it just helps people feel better. And that's really at the heart of what we do at Stretch Zone is we try to optimize and maximize what your body's capable of because our bodies are getting older. Everything hurts more than it did before. And we
Yeah.
want to be active and we want to remember a time when we could move our bodies in ways that get harder and harder as you get older.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. If you're really resonating with what we're talking about and want to get clear on what truly drives you, what your core values are, head on over to my website. In the tools and tips section, there is a free values assessment. And this is a quick exercise that's going to help you to uncover what actually matters most with you so you can lead and live with more clarity, fulfillment, and momentum. Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And when you decided to come on to Stretch Zone, what are some of the things that actually drew you to the company where you kind of knew maybe this wasn't just a fad, this is something that you guys can really get out there?
Well, I mean, me personally, I've always been a very active person. As I said, a marathon runner. I believe in pushing my body to the limit. I love the testing what my body's capable of. And on a very personal level, I believe that I was getting stretched. I was doing this before I was a customer, before I ever like this was in my wheelhouse. This was something I
Mhm.
was doing and I believed in. And I couldn't believe how much better I felt every time I would get stretched and how it enabled me to do things that I wasn't able to do before. So like I am the demographic. And so, boy, I was a believer before I ever heard of this opportunity. So then the call comes in, and I'm sitting, doing something else that I love in another brand. I was at Sola Salons before. I loved it. Beautiful brand. Loved what we did there, and very proud of the work that was happening there. Um, but this was exciting. This was exciting. I love being a part of growth brands, and I've learned a lot about myself and the sweet spot that we each have um, in the life cycle of a company. And I almost think of like chapter one is the founder. And there's a very unique time in a company's history where you're really scrappy. Everybody rolls up their sleeves. I did that at Cold Stone, and everybody does everything, and it's an exciting time. Then there's a chapter two where you take it to a certain level, and it's like, now we need to bring in someone that has experience to take it to the next level. Then you have a chapter three, which is like, now we're really big and we've already done all the growth. Now we got to figure out how to maintain this level. I've found my sweet spot is this like chapter two. It's like there is something magical about coming into a brand that a founder has set up that has created this incredible model, but now we can professionalize it. And now we can create systems and tools and protocols and SOPs and build a world-class team that a founder, when you're sitting at 20, 30, 40 stores, could only dream of. You're not going to attract the top level talent and the dream team, but you can when you hit scale. There's a certain thing that happens when you hit scale that you can attract talent, but you can also, you have brand recognition that you don't have when it's a Beatty brand. And like to me, this is the fun time. And there will be a day where it goes to this chapter three where it's like, okay, now it's time to bring in someone else. I'm gonna go help the next company in this chapter. And you learn enough about yourself over years of learning who you are and where you thrive, that this is the moment for me. And I'm just loving it. It's just fun.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I'm curious as well, like when you first started, because you've been with them for I think 2 years now. So yeah, when you first started, what was the some of the first things that you basically were doing when you started with Stretch Zone?
We had to look at the entire business and say what works and what doesn't work. We knew the stretch protocol was magic. The founder of Stretch Fund, his name is Jordan Gold, another Jordan. He created something incredible and very special, and it's a protocol, is what it is. There are other stretch concepts out there that are also wonderful. I don't say anything bad. I've been to all of them. I've been a customer of all of them. I think they're wonderful. The difference between us and others is that we're very protocol driven, which means that every stretch that we do is tried, tested, and true, and safe and effective. So you know what you're going to get. We have all kinds of variations to it. So you're not going to get the same experience every time you come, but it is a set of stretches that is protocol based, and it's quite unique. Um, so what did I do when I came here? Didn't touch that. That was perfect. That was the secret sauce. But we had to look at the business and say, what are the things to the business that had to change and had to grow and improve and mature? And, one is we brought in a top level team. After I
Mhm.
started, we started to look at the entire organization. We had some really stellar players, but we needed to top level the senior leadership. So we brought in new people and new blood, and that gives us the ability to look and say, we're 400 stores strong. We can bring in top talent. And so we did that first. Then we looked at the business itself and we said, how do we make our business into a real robust membership? My background starting at Massage Envy was really about how do we create a membership around the service. And that what that does is it makes sure we get longevity and we get a path for you as the consumer to come in on a regular journey, but we also can bring the cost down drastically by doing that. If I know I'm going to get you for 12 months or however long your journey is with us, hopefully longer, then I can bring down the cost. So we implemented a membership offering. We looked at the labor pool and we said, the business itself, we had stretch practitioners, which are highly trained in the actual stretch protocol. We were having them sell all the memberships. In what world do you see that? You don't. Like if you go
Yeah.
to Orange Theory or Massage Envy, you don't see the teacher or the massage therapist selling you the membership. There's a front desk and they're trained on membership sales. And so we instituted that model and we looked at the labor pool and we said, we should let our practitioners do what they do best and what they love and what they're good at. And they're good at stretching people, healing people, helping people. What they're not necessarily good at or don't want to do is do that piece of like they're not salespeople and they don't
Yeah.
want to be. And so we looked at the labor model and we said, let's make some innovations and changes there. And so we kind of looked at the whole business and we said, what are the things that work and what are the things that don't? We were not going to touch stretching. That is absolutely the magic of the business. But there are so many other things that we can up level and professionalize. And that was really, in a 2-year journey, I feel like I'm at the beginning of all this still. That was really the first things that we looked at.
That's
So it's
awesome.
been fun.
And I'm curious too, because even that dynamic where you said like we had created this entirely new senior leadership team, how long did it actually take you guys to really get the right people for the right seats?
I would say faster than you think.
Hmm.
When you know what you're looking for and you have a brand that people want to be a part of, it's not hard to attract people. And so like just like anything else, I mean, you want to be very methodical and careful, but you also I don't believe in dragging this on for a year, 2 years to find the right people. You'll know quickly whether everybody says all the right things in interviews, and very quickly once they're in the chair. But I think we did very well. I think we found some good people. I'm very proud of our team. And it didn't take that long. I would say I started 2 years ago. Within 6 months, we had built the team.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's
And they're
awesome.
all here, knock on wood. We still have everybody. Everyone's happy. I think, in any business, I don't care how good or how bad your product is. Your team is what makes the business work. You can have the best product in the world, and the worst team will ruin it. And
Yeah.
I think conversely, you can have a mediocre product and have the most rock star team you've ever seen and knock it out of the park. I mean, we see it every
Yeah.
day in business
See that all the time.
all the time.
And you're
So
like,
I'm very
what are
proud of
they
our
up
team.
to? And you're like, that's a good team. Oh, that's very cool. Okay, so I have another question too, because even that labor model that you shifted, right? So not just having the individuals who are doing the stretching, selling and doing the membership and doing all these sort of check-ins and stuff. So letting them focus on what matters most in their values and what they're good at. How did you guys discover that that was a problem? And then again, with the implementation, what's the timeline? And just because it sounds like with 400 stores, how did you sort of roll that out with the 400 stores?
Well, I'll say, I wouldn't go so far as to say it was a problem. I think it was more of an
Mhm.
opportunity, and that's probably corporate spin. But I actually believe that those are the right words. Like the system wasn't broken, the brand wasn't
Um,
broken, but you look at ways to optimize, and you look at how did you identify? Like it was very clear just from looking at prior businesses that I've been a part of, and just looking at the rest of the world. You can see that. You've got these wonderful people that are practitioners that are healers. They're never going to want to do a sale. I can't. You get the background of Massage Envy. I remember talking to massage therapists for many years. I spent 7 years there, and my time there. If you ever asked a massage therapist, if you ever used the word sell, you'd get the stink eye.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not here to sell. That's your job. My job is to deliver a great massage. And once you realize there sort of is a left brain, right brain, and you've got people that are really gifted in healing and helping other people, but it's not their gift to be, and I'm not talking hard sales, like that's not what this is. This isn't the used car salesman with the slick back hair,
Yeah.
but it still takes somebody that can learn how to interact with people on a very human level, that can talk about that, like, if anybody thinks that some product sells itself, very few do. You have
Mhm.
to have a conversation with people. You have to build rapport. You have to get to know them. You have to get to understand what their human need is and then be able to solve for their need. And that's what any good salesperson, again, I don't use the word sale in a negative way, or sell or sales in a negative way. In my core, I believe sales is a wonderful thing. And that's like a reset that I've done with many, many people in my career. I think sales is a wonderful thing when you believe in the product you sell and you have a consumer, a customer standing right in front of you that needs that product. It becomes my duty in life to marry those two together, problem and solution together. And when sales is done right, it feels really good and it's wonderful. And
Mhm.
so you find people that understand that, like-minded people that understand that sales is a wonderful thing, but it does take work and it does take building rapport and asking lots of questions and solving people's problems. Um, and once you realize that a massage therapist, stretch practitioner, whatever you want to call it, it's not their gift. And when you
Mhm.
realize that, then what you're doing is you're empowering people to do what they do well and to be very good at it and to be very successful and very proud of what they do by taking something off their plate that's not their thing.
Mhm. I love that. I love that. No, it's a great point too. So that's really cool transition that you guys made. And I'm curious too, so when you're selecting someone who is going to take on a franchise, I imagine that there's some sort of stipulations to make sure you get the right person. How do you make sure you do get the right person to take over a franchise?
Well, I mean, listen, culture in any business is critical, and you let in one bad apple, and it disrupts the culture. Whether it's on the corporate level on my team, or whether it's a franchisee, one bad apple has a ripple effect into the brand, and so we're very careful. Again, we don't always get it right. It's very hard to bat, 1,000. So it's very hard to get it right 100% of the time. But we try really hard, and so we take people through a process during the franchise sales. Um, um, Process. We take them through what we think is a very robust set of, I don't know, steps. One of them being what we call Meet the Team Day. Meet the Team Day, we literally sit in person, eye to eye, face to face, and we get to know them. And it's different than in a Zoom call or on a phone call, where you bring them into the office and you get to know, like, who are you? How did you get here? What's your background? What drove you to Stretch Zone? And
Mhm.
we know what to listen for. If Carly, you said to me, "Well, I'm just looking for a passive investment," you're probably not the right fit of what we're looking for. We are looking for people that want to be part of something, that want to work. And again, you don't need to buy yourself a $12 an hour job and answer phones in your store, but you have to be part of your community. You have to build great culture. You have to want to be a part of that. And people are very honest during these
Mhm.
meetings, and they don't always tell us what we want to hear. And so it's up to us then to be the gatekeeper and to say, Carly, you're a wonderful person. I don't know that you would make a great stretch on franchisee. Sorry, I don't mean to pick on you. I'm sure you're wonderful. But that really is our responsibility to be stewards of the brand and to ask all the requisite questions. Then we look at the financial acumen. I don't need you to have operated. You said it before. We'll give you the playbook. I don't need you to
Mhm.
have experience running a stretch zone or another franchise for that matter, but I need to make sure that you have some acumen on um, on uh, not even so much business acumen, but financial acumen.
Mhm.
Um, the worst thing we could do, and any franchise could do, is you have a pulse. Great, here's your franchise. Because you got to make sure people are set up for success. And if you came in, we have certain financial requirements, minimum net worth. If you came in and you were undercapitalized and you ran out of money the first month, like, that's not good. You
Mhm.
need to be able to have money. I think about my Cold Stone experience. That first February when we opened, if we didn't have the financial wherewithal, we would have shut down within a month because you're not
Mhm.
making money your first month. And so, we try to qualify people not only on the qualitative, but the quantitative. Do you have the financial wherewithal to be able to weather a storm if there were to be one? Otherwise, we'd be sitting on closures left and right. That's
Yeah.
and so but I do think a lot of brands make that mistake, especially in their early growth phase. They'll let anyone in who has a pulse, frankly, probably sometimes when they don't. Um, and I think that's a big mistake.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too because I'm curious how you guys make sure, like, you have this person, they're great, you take them on. How do you make sure that they're carrying on with the level of, not just the connection to culture, but that higher level that you guys are trying to achieve, right? I think of the franchise that I had an experience with last year. It's really difficult. And I actually had no idea it was a franchise. I didn't know this, but UPS stores, I had no idea they were franchises. I know now. And I know because of an issue we had, and I couldn't believe UPS wasn't taking care of the problem. Took something over for my brother. Turns out it was a franchise. I was like, "How is this person even getting away with this?" And it made me think, how are people, like, keeping the pulse on each location to ensure that stuff like that doesn't happen, that shit doesn't hit the fan in a sense?
No, I mean, it's probably the biggest challenge any franchise brand has. The easier
Mhm,
route to go, if you back up and you say, we're not going to franchise, we're just going to open them all and have them all corporate. When you go that route, you don't have that concern. Well, you do a little bit. Did we hire the right manager? But you can make a change like that. When you entrust your brand, we have about 170 franchisees. When you entrust your brand to 170 people, you got to make sure you get it right on the first, go round, but you're not always going to. Again, I wish I could. I wish
mhm,
I had the crystal ball to know right off the bat whether or not you're going to be good or not. Again, I think we try really hard. I think we do a fairly good job, but that doesn't mean we're perfect.
mhm.
And it is sort of the biggest challenge any franchise brand has when you entrust your brand to other people. I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Founder.
Yeah,
Um,
it was great. Yeah, yeah.
I
Which was
tell every family and friend, if you want to know what I do and you want to understand franchising, it is probably the best movie to understand what franchising is. And if you remember the beginning of the movie, when he first franchises it to other people, and then he shows up, um, Ray Kroc shows up into first couple stores, and there's trash everywhere in one of them, and then he sees signs for fried chicken, and it's like all of a sudden everybody wants to like do it their own way. And so you have to have mechanisms for control and checks. We do
Mhm,
an annual audit. Some companies do it every month, some do it every quarter. There's all kinds of different ways to ensure that your stores are adhering to brand standards. I also think that the world has changed a lot since social media. And, back in the day, if you have a store in LA that is not representing your brand, it was isolated to LA and nobody really knew. Today, if that store in LA is not following brand protocols, I'm going to know as a consumer, my friends, my family, everybody in Florida is going to know. They're going to know in New York. They're going to know in Utah. Like word travels when somebody has a bad experience, they tell everybody they know. That's just
mhm.
the way of the world. I do it, you do it, we all do it.
Yep.
Social media has changed that. Whether it's a Google review or I just post something on my own personal Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, word travels fast. And so, like, consistency and high quality and standards matter. But to your point about your UPS store experience, things happen and you have a local
Yeah.
franchisee that interprets business very differently and has their own level of standards. And so it's really incumbent upon us as the franchisor to, as soon as we hear of that stuff, it is our job to figure it out and solve it. And whether that means we talk to that franchisee and say, you need to make this right, or we get on the phone with that customer and we go over their head. Sometimes we have to do that to make it right. There's too much at stake. And even then, we don't always get it right. I mean, think about McDonald's. They're so big and there's so many franchises. And you think about all the brands that exist out there. It's very hard to be perfect all the time. And
For
you're not going.
sure.
And so the question is, how do you recover from it when it's not perfect? And unfortunately, even that franchises don't bat 1,000. And so there's a lot of opportunity there, but I think good franchises have a good pulse of their network,
Mhm.
and they figure out when you have a bad apple, what is the plan to solve for that? And it's not always that easy because you can't fire them. But what you can do is figure out one, how to get them up to the level of standard. And if there's just not going to happen, how do we get them out of our system?
Mhm.
And so we work very hard to ensure um, quality. And in our brand, quality matters because if we don't do it right, someone could get hurt.
Yep.
Not that different from food. If somebody eats bad food, if they're not following
And
standards for
get
the
sick and
yeah,
yeah.
there's all kinds of different germs and bacterias that will harm somebody if food is sitting out too long or it goes into the wrong temperature or not cooked thoroughly. It's the same thing. These are concerns that we at all brands have, um, and we work very hard to try to be as good as we can be.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. So, if this conversation is really hitting home and you want to get a real snapshot of what's working and what's not in your business, head on over to my website in the tools and tips section and you can have the business performance health check. In just about 15 minutes, you're going to see where the friction is and where your next growth opportunity lies within your company.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like a really great example. And I love how you shared that, where it's you're not just investing all this time and making sure everything's working out. Like you also have to invest a lot of time in recovery because life is life and people are people. And just stuff happens.
Well, we
So
train people,
it's life.
100%. Like, we
Yeah.
train people when they come to our franchise training program here, in our corporate office. They come here and we teach them a lot. Again, we don't expect everybody comes to this understanding
Yeah.
basics of customer service. So we train a lot of it. And part of it is like, as a consumer, I know as a consumer that we've all eaten at restaurants where they've gotten it wrong. And
Yeah.
you wait too long, or the food's wrong and they have to bring it back, or there's a hair in your food, or go down the list of all the things that could go wrong. And you don't care when they fix it. When they make it right, you almost don't care. And we've all eaten in restaurants where the food was weak, but the service was so good that we
Yeah.
didn't care that the food was weak. Or flip it around. You've eaten at places where the food is to die for, but the service is abysmal. And
Yeah.
when that happens, you remember more about the service than you do about the food. And so, customer service matters. We have to teach it, we have to train it, but we talk a lot about how important recovery is because you're not going to get it all right. But where you can make somebody really, really loyal and a loyal fan is when you recover from whatever that problem was. Like, if that person at UPS, or whatever your issue was, if somebody figured out how to make it right, you'd become a raving fan and you tell
Yes.
everybody.
Yes.
So that's the
You're
magic.
not wrong.
That's the
Yeah,
magic.
you're absolutely not wrong. It is interesting. It's an interesting dynamic. I do agree with you too. Like the larger a company gets, the harder it is to manage those things, right? So even with UPS, like I don't have unrealistic expectations. Like I'm not a shining star in their eyes, and I probably annoyed the crap out of them. And it took me 6 months to solve that small problem. However, it did eventually get solved. And I do appreciate the person who helped because it took her a long time too. But it is interesting to see it's like the larger the scale, the harder this gets.
Yeah,
So
but that's not a pass. That's
I
not
was
a pass.
gonna ask you, how do you like as you move forward target that? Because for me, and maybe this, I don't know, maybe this is my unrealistic expectations, but I want more. Like I love business. So I'm like, I just want more for people.
Where I really don't think scale and size is a
Mhm.
pass to not be good, to not be great.
Yeah.
I think what's sad about the world we live in is our expectations have we don't have high expectations anymore. We sort of expect the least, and that's sad. Like I think where companies get it wrong, and I really mean this, just and again, I'm not talking about me with my stretch zone hat. I'm talking about me as a human being. Where
Yeah.
companies get it wrong is when they stop caring about who their customer is. And
Mhm.
companies that get it right, and you can think about all the wonderful companies out there that are like best in class, Trader Joe's and Costco and Southwest Airlines, and like maybe less them. They changed some of their policies of late, but they were always at the top of their game. And you think about all these companies that are just best in class at what they do. And when you think about those companies, the reason why they're best at class is because they put the customer first.
Yeah.
And they realize that we have nothing. We literally have nothing if our customer is not happy. If we don't have customers, we have nothing. And I think what happens in a company's life cycle is that is typically how a company starts. Customer is everything. We're going to make them happy. It's the Nordstrom way. And then over time, what happens is we get so bogged down by distraction and by efficiency.
Mhm.
Efficiency. It's like we're just going to become so efficient that it's just like we miss the point. And then what
Mhm.
happens is you kind of come back around. You figure out how to um you realize you made a mistake. And
Mhm.
companies do this all the time. Good companies do this all the time. And then they figure out, oh, we messed up. We forgot about the customer, but the customer is
Mhm.
everything. And so I think if you keep that at the forefront of your mind always, like when you're making decisions as a leader in an organization, how will the customer respond? You can make
Mhm.
decisions that are good for the business, but bad for the customer. Technically, that's really bad for the business. And I
Mhm.
think companies make mistakes about that. You see it with restaurants every day. They cut corners and they cut costs, and it's not what it used to be, and the food used to be good, and now it's not good. And it made a lot of sense for the P&L. I think it's what happens when you try to run a business from a P&L, from a spreadsheet.
Mhm.
And you see it all the time. You have these people that are brilliant people, way smarter than me, that try to run a business from a spreadsheet, and it makes all the sense on the spreadsheet, but doesn't make sense in real world. And that's where it's like folks like myself, I consider myself an operator. We
Mhm.
understand what it's like to look the customer in the eye. And when you understand what it's like to talk to a customer, like I will pick up the phone. People email me as a leader of an organization. Excuse me. I get hit up on LinkedIn all the time.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's as easy as passing it along to that franchisee, but sometimes I pick up the phone and call them directly. And I want to hear what is going on. And I love that. I hate that I have to do it. I hate that the world exists where people don't get service the first time, but I'll talk to them and they'll tell me
Mhm.
what's going on. I'm like, that's totally reasonable. Let's figure that out. But I think that's the difference between running a business from a spreadsheet and running a business from as an operator. Big
Yeah.
difference.
I think that's a great point, and, I feel like also these companies who have a bit of a corner on the market also some take for granted, like, the dynamic of the customers because they just don't need us. They, like, don't think about us, because in the grand scheme of things, like, in their perception, I'm just this one person, and if they lost me as a customer, what kind of hit would it really take? And it's true, but simultaneously it's like, well, then what are your core values? Like, what does that look like? What's your brand promise? Like, what are the things that are also meaningful within the company? And is that still occurring and existing? And what does that look like for like the ground floor? And are you really taking care of people? And I think it's interesting. Like it makes a difference, but then to them it also doesn't, you know.
Well,
So
you're
it's
talking
one of
about
those
one
things.
person. I'm just one person. I don't matter. The problem is when you have that outlook as an
Mhm.
organization,
Yeah.
every one person is having that same thought. And
Yeah.
that's how you erode your business very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, it's funny too because when I was operations manager at this one company, I've had a hard time with UPS for a while for customer care, but it was up to me to choose what shipping company we were going to use because I was working with them to create a deal because we were shipping like tens and thousands of garments every month, and I chose FedEx. I chose FedEx because they had great customer care and they were awesome and they've been awesome and the company's still using them. And so it's funny, it's like that one person that you sort of discount, like you never know where that's gonna go. So I agree with you. It's when the whole company looks at the one person as not a big deal. That's a lot of people.
A lot of
A
one
lot of
persons add
people.
up. And I think the
Yeah,
point that you're
they
making
do.
is you actually have a lot of power. You have a lot of
You
power.
have you never know who is the person in power. You never know who you pissed off. Like
That case in
which
point.
I've done, by the way. I am that person who's done that. So, I've had my lessons. Um, Now I'm curious too, so you guys have had a really strong growth rate over the last few years. And At what point does growth also become an operational risk for you guys? Is that something that's been kind of hitting at all as you start to scale?
Yeah, I mean, I think what happens when you try to scale a company is you try to excuse me, when you're trying to scale a company, you try to maintain the good of the culture and protect the culture from being too big. And
Mhm.
what matters to the company when you're small, if that's who your values, your core values, who you are at your core, how do you scale that? And that's the challenge, and that's the concern, and that's where you focus. So like in our organization, it's really not a concern because we've kept it at the forefront. It matters. Our business is listen, I think culture matters, and businesses that understand that people, and I'm talking about my team, I'm not talking about the customer right now. Our
Mhm.
team matters. And when you have happy team members, it trickles down into your consumer base. And so, we've been very, very diligent and very careful on the culture we create. Growth is not a bad thing. Growth is a wonderful thing. To be part of a growth story is something that also really invigorates an organization. And so everybody on my team feels really special and they feel excited. We opened another store today. That is really fun and really exciting. Listen, you could be on the other side of this. You could be a part of a company that's shrinking. And so it builds a lot of morale and excitement. So it really hasn't been hard for us to build, like that has not been a challenge for us, but we also think
Mhm.
about it very intentionally.
Yeah. That's something that you guys, it sounds like, are planning and, lots of operations, standard operating procedures, lots of things put in place to ensure that you guys can scale comfortably.
Here's a good example. Like we
Mhm.
launched our research study. Our research study launched I'd say about 2 months ago. It was awesome. Like we were published in the Journal of Musculoskeletal Disorders and Treatment. Like it was groundbreaking for our brand. We were picked up by the Today Show and Wall Street Journal and Fox Business. Like it was awesome for us. But that falls on deaf ears if our frontline employees in our stores are not informed, educated, and excited about what's going on. And so we spent months educating our teams and our field. We had a twice weekly call leading up to this launch. And some would say twice weekly. Like I've actually never seen that before, but we wanted to be extra communicative. We wanted to make sure everyone understood the significance of what we were doing. We wanted everyone to be excited and bought in. But like where this fails is if somebody sees us on the Today Show and they walk in the store and the store has no idea what we're talking about, and that's where it fails. And so, I think you talk about growth and how do we scale and how do we keep people still involved. We're not too
Mhm.
big to have twice weekly calls with our entire system. Like we're not too big for that. And I hope we never become too big for that.
Mhm.
Because if you do not take people along for the journey and along for the ride, then you have really nothing to show for yourself. So I think that's just an example of something like we actually just did in fairly recent history, that we tried to still stay a small company and act as a small company, even though we're not.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great example. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm curious as well, because even as you guys choose locations, like what are you guys looking for when you're picking a new location for a new franchisee?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll tell you this. I will say that the franchisee matters more than the location. So you anecdotally have always heard location, location, location. And I think
Mhm.
there's some truth to that. I'm not going to say that, you don't want to be, behind this dumpster on this alleyway of like, yes, you want visibility and you want great parking and you want great signage and you want great co-tenancy and all that matters, but franchisee matters more. And in all the businesses I've seen C locations be home runs because the franchisee is a machine and they're part of the community and they are the mayor of the community, so to speak, and they work it. And I've seen the best locations not succeed because the franchisee is disengaged and not actively involved in the business. And so, yes. So going to your actual question, we like to be where people are. So what does that mean? We think about our business of like, where do you go every day? You go to the grocery store. Grocery anchored businesses are plazas rather, are awesome for our business. Where you don't always want to be is in, well, visibility matters, but you don't want to be in, like I'll go to an area, Calabasas Commons, beautiful shopping, Do you think that someone wants to walk around there looking like they just got stretched? The answer is
Absolutely
no.
not.
That's where
No.
everybody's going to dinner. Everybody's
Yeah.
done up. Everybody looks the part.
They're looking
And so,
pretty fancy. Even the grocery store women are pretty fancy there. Calabasas.
so there's like you want to be where people like their shopping, like their grocery shopping is the right type of center.
Yeah.
But I will go back to like franchisee and the quality of the operator matters far more than the location.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm curious, even leading on to that, I know something that we've talked about before, but we haven't talked about yet, is you guys have the Franchisee Advisory Council. So tell us a little bit about that and what that looks like.
If a franchise brand does not have an advisory council, you want to ask why. It is critical in a business to partner with franchisees, let them into the inner circle, vet everything with them. Boy, I'd hate to get to the end of whatever it is and franchisees are not on board. I'd hate to get like I want them to be tough. I want them to push. I want them to ask the hard questions because if we can answer all those and get to the end of whatever it is, and we feel really confident that we've got the buy in because we did all the right listening, we will all be more successful. And so you treat this group as your partners and you let them in to the inner circles of every decision and you let them be tough. And you don't pick people that are going to rubber stamp your business because that serves no purpose whatsoever. And so we picked a really, really great group. We love, as a matter of fact, I spoke to them earlier today. We meet with them on a regular basis every 2 weeks, and there ain't no idea that goes out to the field without that group being involved. And we can disagree on a lot of things, but when we walk out, we're aligned. And
Mhm.
that is how we treat that group. And they are actively part of every decision that we make. I've always been a part of franchise brands that have these groups, but that is a question that anybody coming into a franchise wants to make sure they have a franchise advisory council and ask questions about what does that look like? What is that mechanism? Is it a rubber stamp committee? Ask tough questions. And if there isn't one, how do we get one started?
Mhm. And I'm curious too, because with the advisory council, is that someone that they are franchisees and you're kind of picking leaders within that as opposed to
Correct.
just hire? Okay, cool. That's
Representative,
fun.
it's a representative body. And so,
Yeah.
you try to pick folks big and small, single unit operators, multi-unit operators, somebody that has stores in this part of the country, that part of the country, a store that may be more seasonal, one that's not. You try to run the gamut of like representation. So you think about like Congress, where you try bad example. But you try to find a representative body of folks that, yeah, no, not real politics at this. Um, you try to get a representative body that can really make sure that everyone has a voice in your brand.
Okay.
And the larger operators are going to have a very different perspective and a bit different opinion than a single unit, but you want to hear it all, and you really want to make sure that that group um, is valued. That you're not just going to them at the end and saying, "What do you all say?" You bring them in at the beginning. Hey, we have this idea. I'm just riffing it right now. I just have this idea. Give me a gut check. Are we on the right path? Then we get a little further down. We say, I want to give you an early glimpse of what we're thinking, and you show it to them. Have them poke holes. What does it do? It gives us a better end product,
Yeah,
whatever it is.
amazing. Yeah. And as you look at the future for Stretch Zone, what is maybe your guys' long-term vision, long-term goal that we can look forward to seeing?
Well, I'll tell you the biggest thing right now is this research study. I mentioned it earlier, but like to commission a clinical research study that was published in a peer-reviewed journal has been massive for us.
Exciting.
It's like we knew for eons, we knew how effective and how good the stretch was. We knew because we heard it every day from our customer. I know it because I was a customer. But to be able to quantify that and to be able to say with confidence that 78% of people that get stretches will feel
Mhm.
less discomfort, less pain. I could sleep at night knowing that number was 10%. I could feel really good about my contributions to the world. But to say 78%, to say that 68% reported higher energy, 58% of people reported better sleep. Like these things like are it's
It's a
gonna
big deal.
it's already transformed their
Yeah.
business.
It's a game changer.
It's a game changer.
Yeah.
So that was a big lift and a big moment for us to like, we literally saw it as so big that we did a grand reopening event at a 425 stores on the same day at the same time at the end of February because we said like old brand, like it's old. We're drawing a line in the sand. And it's a new day for the Stretch Zone brand because now we have data and we have a research study and we can talk with real confidence about what this is going to do for the world's population. And so we said, we are relaunching this brand. We did a ribbon cutting at every store at the same time on the same day because that's how big this was for us to retrain the entire Stretch Zone universe on what we're doing here. You know, like I look at the data. I literally have a sheet next to my computer because I look at it all day long, and it reminds me of like all the things that we're doing. And we always knew it was good, but to say 61% of participants have increased ease in daily activities, things like
Mhm.
tying your shoes, playing tennis, racquetball, pickleball, golf, it's a new day for us. And so you
Yeah.
ask what's next? Like what's next is now. It's happening right now in real time. And so it is probably the most exciting time for the Stretch Zone brand. I only have 2 years to drop on, but I talk to our team and to our franchisees that are more excited today than they were the day they signed up with the brand. So it's a
Mhm.
great moment for us.
That's awesome. I can tell you're excited.
How could
That's
you
awesome.
tell?
It radiates. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. And tell people where they can find out more information about Stretch Zone, about you.
Well, it's less about me. I appreciate you having me on here, but stretchzone.com, check us out. In fact, on the top corner of the page, there is a link for research. It'll say research. And I would tell all your listeners to click that link and check out the research study. There's a little video documentary style that we filmed on how we came up with this research study. The journal article itself is on there, but it shows all the facts and figures. So anybody is trying to do some homework and some research on why assisted stretching and why Stretch Zone is so beneficial to their life, I would implore them to check that out. And listen, you probably also have many listeners that are looking at opening up their own business, and we would love that. And so there's a franchising tab on our website as well. And we would love, boy, what a cool story that would be. Hey, I heard about you on Carly's show, and we want to open up our own store. Like, I would love that. That would be so cool.
That would
So
be fun. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you again. I appreciate you coming. If anyone really enjoyed this, if you like it, feel free to share it with someone else who might find it inspiring. And thank you again, Jordan. I appreciate your time.
thanks for having me. This has been really fun.